Good morning, everyone, on this very chilly November 30th morning. Welcome to our webinar. We are pleased to have one of our partners with us from Easy Stock, Tony Vitello. And Tony is going to be presenting on is inflation cutting into your cash flow, optimizing your inventory investment will help. And just as a reminder, we are recording this webinar and we will post it to our on-demand webinar library for you to review again or share with anyone. And you can find our library under our resources tab on our website at anovia.com. And we do encourage you to ask questions during our presentation, so please feel free to type them into the questions box in the webinar control panel questions box area, and we will answer them at the end of our session. So now I'm going to turn it over to Tony to kick off our presentation.
Thank you. And thank you for having us today, and thank you for joining, everyone. We hope you had a happy Thanksgiving and you have a happy holidays coming up here towards the end of the year. Before we get to that point, though, we want to kind of talk about a few things around the current environment we're in and how we're going to be operating in 2023. Some things we were going to go over, so some of the 2022 supply chain influences. We'll look over some predictions we see here for 2023, talk a little bit about how inventory optimization can be a part of that, solution to the challenges we are going to be facing the upcoming year, take a little look at Easy Stock itself, and how do we help Microsoft, or how do we enhance Microsoft products, and then what benefits you would receive from something like an inventory optimization solution. So to start off with some of the influences we've seen so far in 2022, a big one that we've seen is the China's zero COVID policy. So China's home to the world's largest export economy and the second largest import economy. So anything disrupting the supply chain in that region has far-flung consequences. The zero COVID policy is exactly what it sounds like. China is seeking to eradicate COVID completely. So anytime a new case is detected, the area goes into lockdown, which has affected both the ports and the manufacturing plants in the country. On the side of Chinese manufacturers, closures and other disruptions have led to a contraction for the industry for the third month in a row here. And a contraction is forecasted to continue well into November. For Chinese ports, 8 of the top 20 largest global ports are within China, and 30% of the world's shipping backlog is resulting from the country's lockdowns. So with holding, almost, let's say, just over 50% of those, not just over, almost 50% of those ports, it has a drastic effect on how we import our goods and what goods we can get. We've seen some protests as well within China recently, which haven't had an effect. And despite those protests, the Chinese government has made zero indication of ending the zero COVID policy. So we can expect that trend to carry over into 2023. Another another event in the world, I should say, that has had an effect within supply chains globally is the war between Russia and Ukraine. We've seen shortages within the oil and gas sector, which has caused a bit of a ripple effect, as most products that we have today are petroleum-based products. We've also seen shortages within the agricultural space, as well as the metals required for manufacturing coming out of these regions. And from this, there's been a resulting sanctions and retaliations, which have furthered the supply chain disruptions that we're seeing on some of those exports. In addition to that, we've seen scarcity rising in these areas, which for the goods that they are exporting and providing to the world, which is also causing a bit of effect on the global supply chain. And finally, inflation is on the rise globally. The scarcity of raw materials coupled with the transportation disruptions have driven up prices for virtually everything globally. And unfortunately, it's a bit of a vicious cycle with supply chain disruption causing inflation, and inflation consequently driving supply chain changes. As much as I would love to say that this is all going to be going away, unfortunately, inflation is going to be here for a little bit. Decline is imminent, and inflation is forecasted to remain high globally. In 2022, we see that we had the highest inflation rate of 8.8%. In 2023, we will see global inflation at around 6.5% currently being projected, and hopefully by 2024 we can see that even lower to 4.1%. Of course, you've been here all year, so you're not blind to these challenges we've seen up to this year, but these are things that we're seeing as well, or want to at least call out that we see are going to have a drastic effect on how we will operate going forward. Next, let's take a look at what we are projected to see here in 2023. So last month, IMF released their World Economic Outlook growth projections. And unfortunately, the picture isn't pretty, but nonetheless, it could potentially be the reality of what we will be facing. So we should be prepping for that. The global economy is forecasted to stall throughout 2023 with growth only at about 2.7% forecasted, and to be a bit higher, I should say, to remain a bit stagnant there amongst the emerging markets and developing economies at about 3.1%. I'm sorry, 3.7%. And then advanced economies, we can see the growth projections are currently at about just over 1%. So it seems like we will see a little bit of contracting there as well globally going into 2023 in most areas. But like I said, these are things that we want to look at now and start planning for. We can break this down a bit further. The US economy is forecasted or has a forecasted growth of about 1% next year, which is quite a bit down from 2021 growth of 5.7%. So we can expect to see these challenges more than likely globally, not only just within the United States here. We can see here in Latin America and the Caribbean, growth projection about 1.7, the sub-Saharan Africa region about 3.7%. Emerging and developing Asia looks to be a little bit of a growth at 4.9%, but most likely down in all areas of the world. So what's it going to take to be successful in 2023? We believe it's going to boil down to visibility and flexibility within your supply chain. With visibility, having insight into every piece of your supply chain, including the details from your tier 1 to tier 2 and even your tier 3 suppliers, will help you identify and address potential issues before they become major problems. Within your own company, this includes insights into your current inventory levels, open purchase orders, lead times, customer demand, upcoming trends like seasonality or even promotion and sales management, and so on. In terms of flexibility, your supply chain's flexibility will depend heavily on your visibility. Success in an unstable environment will depend on your supply chain being flexible and adaptable. Identify dual suppliers or alternate suppliers, develop alternate logistic networks, even create alternate designs for your products. Nearshoring can also help to an extent, but only if raw materials will be available. So a solution, we believe it could be an inventory optimization solution, which will provide you that visibility and flexibility. If we talk a little bit more specifically around Easy Stock and how Easy Stock works, Easy Stock's built on 4 main modules. The first module is going to be the forecasting piece. So each day, Easy Stock would receive a set of files and would issue your items one of these 8 demand types. depending on what demand type your item would receive, is going to dictate the safety stock and forecasting algorithms. So it's not a blanket approach. It's very much so tailored to how the behavior of that item works, or behaves, I should say. And if you look here, if we look at a fast moving item, which sells consistently month to month in consistent volumes versus a lumpy item, which sells intermittently through the year, but when it does sell, the volumes are drastically different. Each item, let's say, may sell 120 a year, but the way we got to that 120 is drastically different. Therefore, we believe we should treat them different and tailor the most appropriate algorithm to get the best forecast going forward. From there, it'll move on to the optimization piece. So this is what we call our inventory policy matrix. And really, this is the main driver behind the optimization piece, helping you decide things that you should stock or not stock. You know, how often should we order it? What quantity should we be ordering in? How much should we be keeping on hand? Things like that. The third module is going to be the replenishment and multi-site planning. So each day, Easy Stock is going to provide you a list of recommended orders. It's going to present to you items that need to be ordered, and you have the option to go ahead and move forward with that order or not. If you do want to move forward with that order, we call that confirming the order, based on an export schedule that we would determine during implementation, would push back those approved order lines back into your Microsoft instance or ERP in a pre-populated purchase order, taking out all the manual keying there of purchase orders. The second piece of that is the multi-site planning. So the system has the intelligence to actually look within your network and find where you may have stock that's not being used and suggest it to be shipped to another location that does need it or that does sell it. It can help free up some working capital, can help cut down on supplier lead times, and help cut down on some ordering costs as well. The fourth module is going to be the reports and KPIs. So I think there's just over 20 plus pre-built reports within the system, but there's tons of data in the system. And so how do we get that into a readable format, into a timely manner so that you can best proactively manage your inventory? To speak a little bit about how is the system trying to identify that demand pattern. And what the system's doing is it's looking at an item and trying to identify where at in the product lifecycle stage it is. So if you look here towards the left-hand side, we have the product lifecycle graph. Based on that creation or activation date within your system, the system's EasyStock's going to recognize that that's a new product. As we head into that growth stage here, sales are really starting to pick up. We can see that there's some positive trend in that item. The system automatically will pick that up and consider that in its forecasting. As we head into the growth stage here, we see that sales are going well. We're selling quite a bit, pretty consistently month to month. The system's going to say, okay, well, it was a new product. We'll now consider it to be a fast-moving product. As we head in that maturity stage here, we can see that sales start to vary quite a bit. What was a fast-moving product may be considered erratic now. As you head through that tail end of that maturity stage here, the sales start to level off again. We may consider that to be a fast-moving product. Until we head to the decline where sales start to fall off, we see some negative trend there. We will pick that up automatically and consider that in our calculations until sales start to die off to become either a slower, lumpy moving item or dying or obsolete. Two things here I just want to take away from this is, one, when we say dying or obsolete, not to get confused with the product life cycle stage, we're not speaking of a product being end of life necessarily. We're talking about dying or obsolete in terms of forecasting. Let's say we haven't had sales in the past 12 months, and that's what we would have our parameter set to. We would then consider that item dying or obsolete. Going forward, we would set the forecast to 0 so that we don't reorder a product that's not selling. The second thing, though, and the most important thing I want to take away from this is that the system is very dynamic in the sense of it's constantly evaluating your item's behavior to identify what demand pattern it should be so that we get the best forecasting algorithm out of it. Once it goes from new to fast, it's just not going to stay as a fast product for the rest of its life. It's going to look and say, okay, well, sales started to vary, so now we need to reclassify that demand pattern and apply the more appropriate algorithm for that behavior. So very dynamic in that sense. helping you stay on top of your inventory a bit better. Here we like to talk about the 4 main inputs into our forecast. So the first input is going to be the base forecast. So the system's going to identify, or it's going to analyze your historical sales and calculate that base forecast. It's also going to analyze those historical sales and try to pick up any trend. If it does find trend, there are trend suppressors active in the system so that we don't inflate or deflate your forecast over time if it does identify trend. The third is going to be your seasonal factors. So the system automatically identifies seasonality and applies seasonal profiles to your items. If there are items that maybe the system doesn't deem seasonal, but you do, you can apply a seasonal profile to those items with the click of a button. And then the fourth input is going to be manual input. So users have the ability to go in and manually adjust the forecast if they wish. A great example would be let's say we're throwing a promotion here in periods 4, 5, and 6. We can see that we've looked at the forecast that the system has calculated, and we say that would look great, but with this promotion we have coming up, we think it's going to be 20% higher. We can go in and add 20% on top of what the system has already calculated so that we can consider what we believe that promotion will do or that increase in sales because of that promotion. Here we want to talk a little bit about how the inventory policy works. So like we said, this is our inventory policy matrix. It's an 81 square matrix. Each item would fall into one of these cells based off of its value of annual usage and its pick frequency. So if we look at value of annual usage, what the system is doing is it's looking at your items and it's trying to work out what is the overall investment needed to stock that item. From there, it's going to subdivide that into an A, B, or C classification. A items being your higher investment or higher investment needed items, and your C items being your lower investment needed items. Pick frequency, we call it picks in our system. Maybe you call it hits, but what this is the transactions. How many transactions has this item had in the last 12 months? Very low transactions would be your P0s and 1s and 2s, and your very high transacted items would be your P6s, 7s, and 8s. And as we see here, we have these white shaded cells here and these blue shaded squares here. The white shaded cells would represent items that you would consider to be non-stocked or items that maybe you offer to your customers, but you don't keep them on your shelf. You'll order them as a customer order comes through. And the blue shaded squares here are going to represent items that you would stock, items that you would keep on your shelf. So if we look here towards the bottom right-hand corner, we can see these cells shaded in light blue. For these cells here, perhaps we would give them a 99% service level or target service level with a low orders per year, meaning we will order them less frequently throughout the year, but in higher quantities. And the reason for that is because we know that these are lower investment items and that they sell quite a lot or quite frequently, we can afford to take on a bit more risk, stock these in higher quantities because we know that they're going to sell and we can reach that higher availability target. Whereas these darker blue shaded squares here, made up of our higher investment needed items, some A's, B's, they don't sell as much as these down here in the bottom right-hand corner. Perhaps we would issue these a 90% target service level and a high orders per year so that we'll order them more frequently throughout the year, but in smaller quantities, constantly having inventory turn in the warehouse. What we're trying to do is help manage risk in our inventory by balancing availability against investment. How do we get the highest availability for the lowest possible investment? To talk a little bit more about those automated order proposals. So EasyStock automatically calculates the optimal safety stocks, the reorder points, and the order quantities. From there, the users have the options to say, yes, we want to move forward with this and order it, or no, we don't. Again, if you do, you just click confirm, and based on that export schedule, we would determine during implementation would be pushed back into your ERP system into that pre-populated purchase order, taking out all the manual keying of purchase orders. Let's take a little bit of a glimpse of what EasyStock looks like and some things that we find are going to help our customers into 2023. The first one is the summary screen here. This is going to provide you a very good high-level overview of your locations or your company-wide view, depending on how you want to see it. But it's going to draw your attention to things like what needs to be ordered for the day, what is the health of my inventory. You can look at your demand type summary. You can see what makes up your item quantities in terms of demand types, your stock value, or what we have is our demand value used for forecasting, which is showing you where your sales are coming from. And then on the right here, we can see we have our systems alert summary. So we are a managed by exception tool. We have over 60 pre-built alerts in the system. You may not need to look at all 60, but there are some that we do think are great ones to look at. But nonetheless, this is going to give you a very great overview and a great insight into your supply chain and into your inventory at each location, or like I said, depending on how you want to look at it, throughout the entire company. There's also some KPIs here on this screen that you can look at as well. Things like your stock turn, your service level, your sales value. What are the trend of your sales looking like? The second screen we want to show is the recommended order screen. So this is where you're going to see all of the items that you need to look at to order. Obviously, you have tons of different options here. You can look to filter based off of. You can get very granular with your search. You can get very broad with your search, just depending on what works best for you. But nonetheless, the system is automatically calculating these, automatically suggesting these, so that all you have to do is go through the items and say, yes, I want to order this, or no, I don't. Really helps cut down on time, and more so, allow your purchasing team to be more efficient so that they can be spending time on things that actually would have a larger effect on the organization versus sitting there just trying to calculate orders manually. The risk of runout report, we find this to be extremely helpful. It's been helpful to all of our customers through the past 2 years, and we anticipate that to be even more helpful going into 2023. But what this is it's really showing you what items you are currently at risk of running out on, and what does that look like in terms of item quantity, a monetary value, a time perspective, so how many days, really giving you insights into your inventory, to where you can make those decisions on whether or not should we maybe get with the supplier and expedite some items in, should we hold off, what does that look like for you? The next screen that we find are going to be extremely helpful is going to be the order schedule. So what this is it's showing you your items at about the time in which you would need to place a replenishment order and how much the system would project you to order at that time. We can see we have a bunch of details on the item itself. On the lower right-hand side here is actually what it looks like in terms of when you would need to order. So this is actually showing us that we would need to order here pretty soon, 59 units. On the left shows you that expected stock graph saying if I were to order those 59 units today, this is about when I would get my stock in and what my inventory levels will look like after I receive that stock. This is a very helpful screen and will be extremely helpful going into 2023, as you can share this type of information with your supplier so that they can set the expectations with you on what they can or cannot deliver on throughout the year. You can send them that projection of what you would need to be ordering. Maybe you want to send it for the next 6 months, the next year, whatever it may be. But like I said, really trying to help improve that supply relationship so that they can set the expectations of what they would be able to and not be able to deliver on for you throughout the year, giving you enough time to potentially find an alternate supplier if you need, but nonetheless, having that proactive mindset and managing your inventory going forward, which is going to be a huge and crucial step to take in your inventory management practices going into 2023. The next screen here, I believe this is the last screen here that we want to show, is going to be our order fill-up functionality. So this is actually, if I go back here, This is actually a part of the recommended order screen. You would just click that button there to see the order fill up screen. But what this is doing is, as you go through your orders for your suppliers, maybe you have some sort of minimums that you have to meet, like an overall dollar minimum. Maybe you don't want to exceed a certain weight, or in terms of a total order volume, maybe you are importing containers from overseas and you want to maximize the space on your containers. As you go through your orders for your suppliers, you can check to see where you're at currently at reaching those potential supplier constraints. Let's say, right now we have, 32 items approved, and we have a total order value currently of 126,000, but we have an order minimum of, let's say, 150,000 with this particular supplier. I know that seems high, but for the sake of this example, let's say we had $150,000 minimum. We would go into this cell here, we would type in 150,000, we would click order fill up, and the system is going to strategically look forward at items for that supplier that will need to be ordered maybe within the next day, week, maybe a month, and bring those into today's date so that we can hit that minimum. The same goes for even total order volume. Let's say we want to fill up a container. We're looking at what we have already approved for that particular supplier, and we don't have it cubed out. We can type in the total feet cubed, meters cubed, whatever unit of measure that you would use. We would type in that total, hit order fill up, and the system will bring items in for that supplier to fill that container so that we're not leaving any empty space on it. Very helpful. All of these screens that we've shown so far, customers have used over the past 2 years to help combat some of these disruptions we're seeing in the supply chain globally, and have kept them one step ahead of their competition. So let's talk next on how EasyStock enhances Microsoft. The first thing we want to go over is our connections into Microsoft. So we do have pre-built connectors. We can also integrate via flat files and communicate through SFTP. But nonetheless, each day we would receive a set of files. We would receive your item data, your historical sales data, and any open purchase orders. We can also help forecast and help handle multi-level bill of materials. So we have some functionality around that within the system. We can actually forecast your independent and dependent demand, or your BOM dependent demand, I should say. We can give you outlooks into both of those, provide you full visibility into your bill of materials, showing what parts go into what bill of materials. And then that fourth file there is going to be the forecast adjustments, which is optional as well. But if you want to make adjustments to your forecast, you can do that within your Microsoft instance and not necessarily through EasyStock, although you can do it through EasyStock as well. So each day we would receive these set of files. EasyStock is going to run through those 4 main module processes that we talked about earlier. The output is going to be those confirmed order proposals. Those would get shipped back into Microsoft, into that pre-populated purchase order, and then we would rinse and repeat night after night. We generally will do this during the nighttime so that nothing's disrupted during the day, so that each day when users walk in, they have a fresh set of data to be working with. So EasyStock's purchasing and inventory optimization app is available on AppSource. For anyone that is on BC, our integration is on AppSource as well through the extension marketplace. It's fairly quick. You just download it, and then from there we go ahead and configure the connector itself. Generally that takes, I'd say, we do that within a phone call, generally over an hour time span. This is a little bit of what it looks like. So when we download that extension into your Microsoft instance, we would go ahead and start configuring it. So a little bit about how Dynamics Inventory Module enhancements, or how we kind of enhance Dynamics Inventory. So one thing is the differentiation of forecasting methods. we have a bit more added sophistication to our forecasting versus what Microsoft will offer off the, let's say, out of the box. We have the automatic classification and reclassification of demand type. So we showed you that through the product lifecycle graph and how it's constantly evaluating your items to make sure that it is giving and applying the most appropriate algorithm. Automated calculations of the replenishment parameters, offering full and better supply chain visibility amongst all of your stocking locations. The advanced trend and seasonality function, so picking up on that seasonality automatically and trend and applying or considering those within the forecasting calculations. Visibility to the promotional activities, so being able to actually see when you had thrown promotions, what kind of effects they've had. We talked a little bit about that bill of material functionality so that we can handle multi-level bill of materials forecasting and planning. We have the order fill-up functionality, which is one thing, like I said, has helped our customers drastically throughout the past 2 years when ordering containers or having to meet those supplier minimums. The forecast adjustments, easily being able to go into the system and adjusting the forecast to best reflect potentially what's going on in the external environment, whether that be a new customer that you just get on and you want to incorporate their forecast into your forecast, or the promotions themselves, being able to adjust the forecast to appropriately plan for that promotion. Assembly and production management within Easy Stock. So with that bill of materials, if you do have them, we can suggest what assembly and production orders you should be looking at in order to maintain your stock on those top level items. And then taking out the tedious and complex materials requisition worksheet management. So Easy Stock would replace the requisition worksheet as you would be able to do all your ordering within Easy Stock. And like I said, having that pre-populated purchase order into your Microsoft instance. So a little bit about who we serve. So the main industries that we work in is going to be wholesale, distribution, manufacturing, retail, and e-commerce. The typical size of companies that we work with range anywhere between 5 million and 200 million in revenue. They generally will have an inventory value of $1 million to 50 million. We can help and work with companies that have a make to stock, buy to stock, make to order production model or model itself. And also things around non-perishable. So working with companies around non-perishable items. We can work with companies that do have perishable items. Generally, we would recommend them to have a shelf life of 6+ months, as that's really kind of how our system is designed. But it's not to say that we can't work with companies that deal with perishable items. But typically, our customers do deal with non-perishables. And then in terms of how the supply chain is laid out, in terms of how many locations, we can work with companies that have just one location or that have multiple locations. So 1 to, let's say, infinite amount. Here we'd like to talk a little bit about just who we are and where we've come from. So Easy Stock is a part of a much larger organization called Synchron. And Synchron's been an industry leader in the inventory optimization space for well over 20 years now. We've been building this tool out with some of the world's largest companies like Mazda, Manitowoc, JCB, who still use the software today. But what we've realized is the way that we built the system itself is to be quite flexible. So we've repackaged it so that it's easier to implement, realize a quicker ROI, and make it more affordable, and now offer it to the small and mid-sized markets. So that same powerful engine that these enterprise-sized companies are using is now made available to the small and mid-sized markets. Synchron, we are a globally supported organization. We have just over 750 employees, and just over half of those are all on the product development side. So that's ranging from data scientists to UX designers to back-end developers, constantly making the product better and better. One last thing we do like to mention here is that we are ISO 27001 certified. So that's all around data security and data security management. It's a hard certification to get, but it's quite easy to lose. So this is something that we get audited on each year. We've had it now for just over 3 years, or maybe 4 years now even. And each year we've been audited, we've remained compliant. So this is our way to show our customers that, we do take data security seriously. And if, data security is a supply chain goal of yours, which I imagine it is, given the times that we're in with how influential technology is in the businesses, if supply chain security is a goal of yours, then hopefully we could be an extension of that as well. So next, let's talk a little bit about some of the benefits of inventory optimization. So, our whole MO is let the computers do the computing and give more time to the people to do what they need. Investment in technology is critical to help you manage your supply chain during periods of severe disruption like we're currently in. It also keeps you one step ahead of your competition as we move into the new era of trading here, especially going into 2023. Technology will help make businesses more responsive and more agile to the external environment. And better systems will give you the visibility and control you need to manage the moving parts of your supply chain. When challenges arise in the environment we operate in, software such as a WMS and inventory control tools are invaluable, providing the data and capabilities to act quickly, but more importantly, decisively. Another added benefit is tech increases your efficiency. Busy inventory managers will save valuable time by automating everyday manual tasks like forecasting, calculating replenishments. Instead of spending hours calculating those things, you can now focus your energy on more value-added tasks. Tech will give you more time for suppliers and customers. With more efficient processes, teams will have the time to communicate with customers and manage their expectations to solve the issues that they're facing. During times of the disrupted supply, these are critical tasks that will help maintain and reinforce relationships. Not only that, like we said, technology will help improve decision making. Digital supply chain ensures data transparency and improved data accuracy. With accurate and up-to-date information, decisions can be made based on facts and not made on guesswork. So we can leave the gut instinct out of it and have the computers take care of those types of decisions. Some benefits of a standalone solution like EasyStock versus embedded solutions that we've seen. So shorter data processing time with standalone solutions. Standalone solutions typically process much more quickly. In the case of EasyStock, processing will never take more than an hour. And that's at a maximum. It usually requires only about 15 to 30 minutes. Another benefit is it's update safe. So with standalone solutions, often update regularly and automatically as they update, and there is no disruption to other operations within the ERP system. So given that being a standalone solution, any update that does occur happens on our servers, which doesn't bog down the ERP with an update. You also gain greater flexibility and control over with standalone solutions without affecting the use of your ERP system. Like I said, any changes or adjustments made to the system parameters or in the backend of an instance don't affect the performance of the ERP, as that's all handled within the standalone solution itself. You also receive real-time support from your ISV provider. So instead of simply downloading a solution and trying to make it work with the ERP, standalone solutions can come with support teams. With EasyStock, users receive their own customer success manager, and that's available to them at any time. So really want them to be an extension of your team so that they get to know your business as well as you know it, so they can best help and guide you. With that comes personalized trainings. So hand in hand with real-time support, standalone solutions, include personalized training so that users achieve the highest ROI. EasyStock offers training sessions upon closing, in addition to having accessible wiki and e-learning platforms. So really, that CSM is there to be, like I said, that extension of your team. Anytime you have a question or you need a training, that CSM with EasyStock is there to give you that exactly, because we do want to make sure that you are getting the highest value and receiving the most value out of the program that you possibly can. Let's walk through a little business case example. So conservatively, something like EasyStock, we conservatively can provide you a 20 to 30% stock reduction. Productivity gains, we typically see a 30 to 60% increase in productivity related matters, as we do reduce a lot of the manual administration, given that the forecasting and the replenishments are all automated. Also provide you key insights into your service level, so how well you're meeting customer demand. You can see this in multiple areas throughout the system, but with increased service levels, generally you'll see an increase in sales, but more importantly, increased customer satisfaction so that those customers can be longtime customers. So let's walk through the example. Let's say you have an initial inventory value of about $2.5 million. Conservative stock reduction of 20% would equate out to be approximately $500,000. On top of that, we see a yearly stock holding cost savings of about 10% on that $500,000, giving you a potential ROI of $550,000. So quite a good ROI. Typically, we would see that between 6 and 8 months, but again, it just depends on how aggressive you want to get with the system. In terms of next steps, so for those of you that are here today, we are offering a free stock health analysis. So we can actually take your data into the system. We'll do somewhat of a small implementation of the solution, giving you key insights into what your current situation looks like with your inventory, but also a projection of what you could be with using something like EasyStock. Very helpful to actually see it in work, but not only that, give you a way better idea of what it would look like with your data. If anybody does want to take us up on that, feel free to contact me. My information here is below. You can email me at anthony.vitello@easystock.com, or you can give me a call at 312-918-0897. Again, please let us know if you have any questions or need anything. And again, you can find us on AppSource as well. And that would conclude our presentation that we have for you today.
All right, Tony, thank you very much for the presentation. I hope you all got a lot out of that. It does not look like we have any questions that have come through. If anybody does, now's the time to get those in so we can get them addressed. Tony, thank you for the presentation. Any last minute words you'd like to say before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining today. We do appreciate it. I think our main goal here is to help everybody gain value, but also help better manage your inventory going forward. This is just a small piece of the puzzle here that we can help out with. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to address those. If you want to take a deeper dive into the solution, we're more than happy to do that as well.
All right, well, doesn't look like any questions have come through. Thank you everyone for attending. And if you are watching on demand, we thank you for taking the time out to watch this recording. And also to let you know, we do have more upcoming events, and you can check those events out at anovia.com/events. And you can also check out our workshop page at anovia.com/workshops. We have a variety of workshops to fit your role, so check out the ones that are right for you and your team. And if you have not heard our latest Innovia Conversation podcast, we have a library of episodes for you to listen to. And you can learn more on our podcast page at innovia.com/podcast. Browse through our selection and subscribe so you'll get notified when our new episodes air. We do have our events up for 2023 for our conferences. You can visit our conference page at innovia.com/conferences to learn where we're going to be at in May. Scottsdale, Arizona is our venue, and we will be teaming up with Dynamics Con to have back-to-back conferences. So check out that page and register so you won't have to worry about any registration in the new year. All right, Tony. Well, I think that's a wrap. Thank you again, everyone, for attending, and we appreciate your interest, and have a happy holiday. Thank you.
Thank you.